Hello, superstars, and welcome to What's Your Hero Radio, the radio talk show where I talk about heroes I really like. I'm your host, Maya, and in this week's episode, we're talking about the commander of the Grail Mercenaries and hero of Crimea, Ike, from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. This episode is going to mostly focus, well, not mostly, it's going to solely focus on his appearance in Path of Radiance, because I haven't played Radiant Dawn yet. I actually finished Path of Radiance at about 4 a.m. last night, and that was fun. It was a good ending. It was good. The last level gave me some trouble. I actually had to go back and actually use all of my stat boosters and then drop all of my bonus. But anyway, we're getting off. Well, we're still on topic. Anyway, I like Ike. That's about all that really needs to be said. Ike was a really great protagonist for this game, and he's a great hero too. I went into Path of Radiance having played Fire Emblem Awakening, Three Houses, and Engage. Those are the three Fire Emblem games I've played. My first one was actually Engage, which says a lot about me as a person, but it was the gateway into liking a bunch of other liking Fire Emblem. I like Fire Emblem because of Engage. Played Engage, and then I played Three Houses, and then I played Awakening, and now I have played Path of Radiance. I got to play it on the Switch too because they put it on the NSO game, what is it called, Archive? I don't know what it's called, but I got to play it on that, and it was a really good time. I think I sunk about 30 hours into it, and that's how long my playthrough was for Path of Radiance. But yeah, it was incredibly engaging the whole time, and really just a really great game. Like I understand when people talk about like old Fire Emblem versus new Fire Emblem, because that was a really engaging story that I think Engage didn't have. That's for another time though. Not for now. But let's talk about Ike. I say let's talk about Ike, and then I completely just nothing to talk about. No. Ike was a really engaging protagonist. I think the way he grows through the story and his actions to the Lagu. Okay. Side note. I don't know how it's pronounced. I pronounce it Lagus and Belok. So if I pronounce anything wrong, I do apologize. But I am going off how I was pronouncing things throughout this game. But yeah, Ike is he's a great man to his fellow Baroque and the Lagus and everyone he comes across. He is just open-minded, and he's just open into communicating and learning. I think especially in the early game, before his father dies, which I guess spoilers, but this game's been out since the GameCube came out. So anyway, but yeah, Ike's father dies. Guess what? Because you can never have an alive dad in Fire Emblem, and that's just a truth to it. Anyway, before his dad dies, there's a scene where you as the player are learning about the Lagus at the same time that Ike really is, and Ike is asking very genuine questions, and then getting information. But then you meet Lethe and Mordecai later in the game, and he says some stuff, and he's like, "Whoa, that's insensitive," and then he's like, "Oh, I literally didn't know that. I'm sorry." And just throughout the game, he's constantly open to learning information and becoming a good person. Like Ike is a good person, and I think that's like the core of Ike is that Ike is just some guy, which is a really like interesting way to describe him. But like when you compare him to kind of every other Fire Emblem protagonist, Ike really just is some guy. Comparing to the three I've played, Chrom is prince to the nation of Ulysses. Byleth, I guess, is also some girl, but they have the goddess inside of them, so it's like kind of takes it away a little bit. And then Alir is just the divine dragon, so that's definitely not it. And then even games I haven't played, um, Erica and Frame are, I think, actually I don't know, I think they're prince and princess. That sounds right. Uh, Corin, dragon, weird hybrid thing. Didn't play Fates yet. Marth, obviously, the hero, king, prince, all of that. Everybody like in Fire Emblem, they are like nobles. They have like something special about them. But Ike is just some guy, and I think that really creates a better attachment to him as a player. That you grow with Ike as he grows. It's like you get better at your skill at playing the game, and he gets better as a person. And I think it's just a really great combination. And I think, and all of that to say that ties in to, if I were to describe Ike in one word, it would be humble. Because this is the most humble. This is the most humble guy I think I've ever played in a game. Like, again, he is just some guy who wins literally a war, and it's kind of incredible. Having it be so fresh in my mind from in the epilogue, there's the scene where I forget. See, I say fresh in my mind, and then I forget the character's name. Sarah. It's not Seraphim. I'm gonna say it's Seraphim because that's got most of the letters. I'm gonna say it's Seraphim. Seraphim was talking to Ike, and Seraphim's like, "You did a great job out there," and Ike was like, "I was just being the person my parents would want to be," and then they're like, "Well, bro, you did all that by yourself. That's got nothing on them." And I think that really kind of is a paragon of Ike's character about just how humble it is and this humility he carries with him throughout the game. To be kind to all, and even when they don't want his help, he gives it anyway. Like, especially like when you're meeting Racing for the first time, Ike is just like, "Hey, he's in trouble. We gotta go help him." Like they freed him from the room, and immediately Racing was like, "Get away! I don't trust any of you." Blah, 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 blah. I love Racing. Shout out Racing. But besides that, Ike knew he was in trouble, so he went after them, and they killed the Duke, who was trying to get him, and that was a very satisfying kill. But yeah, he's like, "We gotta help him because he needs our help," and then he shouts at the apostle a lot in Bignon. Bignon? See, I should remember this. I'm gonna call it Bignon. Bignon. However you say it. Because he's like, "There's stuff going on out there, and y'all just sitting here. You tested me." He's just a guy. Like, he's just a guy who is thrusted into this war and is leading this army and is dealing with the grief of his father. He's got a lot going on, but he keeps going and he keeps holding on to his values, and he keeps really underplaying how important he is in this war. Because yeah, he's the hero, but he's just some guy. He's just like, "I'm just a mercenary." Even when he gets the title of lord, he doesn't want it. He's like, I don't want to be a lord. I don't want to be a noble. And they're like, "Gotta do it, bro." And he's like, "Well, crap. Guess I gotta do it." And then even at the end of the game, that Seraphim's like, "You could do whatever you want in this country." And he's like, "Nope. I just want to go back to my little castle." And, well, it's not a castle. Like, it's a fort. Well, I want to go back to my fort, and I want to lead my mercenary group, because he's just a guy. But again, it's because he is so humble that he is so great as a hero and as a protagonist, because he just helps everybody he can. And a lot of the time he's like, "We do it because the princess has us in contract." But it's like, Ike, we really know what you want. Like, there's the scene where we're marching back into Crimea, and then the retainers are like, "Oh, we gotta get the princess out of here because she's gonna die." And Ike's like, "Hey, we can't let those guys die." And they're like, "But the princess." And he's like, "Well, we're gonna go save those guys because my princess wants me to." And he does it. He goes out. That was a fun level, by the way. I really like that. You got 19 units, not 19. Was it 19? You got a lot of units on that map, and that was just a cakewalk to get rid of them. And then I don't think I actually used any of the units that I got in that map. The retainers are anyway. Ike's he's just a good guy. He's just this humble, down to earth mercenary who's ends up as a general for an entire army. I think about his speech versus Alencia's speech before going into the final battle. Where Alencia's all regal and she's like, "We are gonna do this. We're gonna see the sun." And Ike's like, "What's up, guys? Don't die on me. I'll be sad. Everybody else will be sad. Okay, let's go." And hey, voice acting corner. That's the voice acting corner right there. I think what's also interesting is his special sword. He doesn't get until the end of the game, which was really interesting to me because again, through Fire Emblem games I played, Chrom has the Falchion throughout the game. That's his sword. Byleth gets the Sword of the Creator in chapter 5, I think. They get it really early in the game. And then Alir has their sword in they get it in chapter. I guess they don't have chapters in Engage, but they get it in the second level from their mom at the end of it. But Ike doesn't get his sword until the third to last chapter because he's holding on to it as a way to grieve his father. And it's almost a symbol of him being ready to face their grief in front of him and prove himself as a commander of the army. Unfortunately, in my playthrough, Ike was not strong enough to defeat the Black Knight. So it was a little bittersweet for me as a player. But I still think that the Ike that I raced and grew turned into a much strong. Well, of course, he turned into a much stronger, but I think he would have been proud of where he was at the end of the game. But that also couples with his special power. Okay, special power in air quotes. That's being ether. I think he says ether in Smash Bros. I thought there was going to be a whole thing for that. I thought there was going to be a scene where he gets this special power imbuing of the flames. No, you use Nicole and he gets the skill. So that was a little disappointing. But I think that also does fuel his whole just a guy thing. Because, again, going to those other three protagonists, Chrom performs the Rite of Awakening to welcome the goddess, and his sword gets powered up. Byleth bonds with the goddess. Alir becomes, the Fire Emblem. Ike doesn't get those things. Ike is just a guy, and it's part of that just makes him so humble. When you line him up on the protagonist, I think that's just why he's such a great hero and protagonist in this game, because he's just a humble guy who's doing the best he can to be a good man and live up to the expectations of his parents and his company. And that's why I think Ike is a really great hero.